Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Ward Powell. And if you're a dentist looking to crack the code on how to grow your practice and dominate in this space, then stick around. You're in the right place. Every week, we're sitting down with some amazing dentists who are doing incredible things in their businesses. We're talking about everything from how they keep their teams loyal and dedicated to how they stay ahead of the game in this crazy, fast-changing industry. You'll hear about hacks like using virtual assistants to free up your time, strategies to make more sales with less effort, and even mind-blowing stories about patents and inventions that are changing the industry as we know it. And it's not just about growing your practice, it's also about finding out what works from a clinical perspective. Whether you're just starting or you're ready to scale to the next level, there's something here for you. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Buske, Jeffrey Buske. We're glad to have you here at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited for today's show. Looking forward to delivering some great content with you guys. And man, I'm just excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, my pleasure. Listen, I just wanted to start off like I do with most of my interviewees. I just want to ask you what inspired you to get involved with the field of dentistry?
Man, that's a great question. My father, he worked for IBM. He was an engineer for forever. And then my mother, though, she was a dental assistant for many years, over 25 years in dentistry. And the great thing is she got a chance to work for some really good doctors. And here's the thing. When I was 17 years old, I grew up in Minnesota, and I remember I was playing an afternoon hockey game, and I was bringing the puck up the ice, and a player from the opposite team hit me so hard with his elbow, and it took me off my skates, knocked my helmet back into my face, and like I was seeing stars. It was like looking up the ceiling of the rink, and I was like, where am I? And by the time I gathered my equipment, I got back over to the bench, and I could taste like the blood on my lips. So I pulled off my helmet and I pulled out my mouth guard and I lifted up my lip. And I said to my teammate, I said, how bad is the cut? And he goes, forget the cup. Where's your tooth? And I was like, I felt up there and my front tooth was broken in half. And I was like, oh my God. First thought was, my mom's going to kill me. And then the thought was like, then I thought, oh my gosh, I remembered too that night I had a date. I had a first date with a girl from another school. So I had to show up with half a tooth. And I remember how embarrassing it was. And at 17, you're self-conscious anyways. And man, I just had all the same things that a lot of our patients go through. Like, I hope that the dentist can put my smile back together. I hope that, it can be affordable. And I hope it's not too uncomfortable. Like all the same things that our patients have.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember watching all the artistry that had to go into it. And it just was like, man, that is so cool. And it gave me, my smile back. And I was just impressed. So at that point on, when I was 17, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I knew that I wasn't quite big enough to then be able to go play NHL for hockey. So I knew I wasn't going to be a professional hockey player. And then, although it'd be good business for dentistry, but I sat there and I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. And that's when I decided I wanted to go into dentistry.
Oh,
That was
that's
it.
awesome. That's a
Yeah.
painful way to get recognized whether or not you want to go to one place or another. But it's
Yes.
a shocking reality. I mean, it kind of gets you really looking into your future. It's like this guy hit me so hard, he knocked some
Yes.
sense into me.
Yes. Well, and just like, there's an artistic side to me that I love with that, and just the part of the creation part that I love with dentistry, and just the ability to impact people. I was just like, man, I want to be able to do that. The
Mm.
impact that he made on me was like amazing.
I'm serious. Hey, the check, you tell them the check is in the mail. Hey,
That's right.
so what happened? What happened? what happens when you start talking? You spoke of anxiety a few seconds ago. So what happens when you get that out, have that situation where you have a patient that's kind of leery, apprehensive in terms of getting whatever work you're suggesting that they get done? How do you handle that from both
And
the artistic point side and financially, you might have some challenges there.
sure. Sure. It's very interesting. Matter of fact, I wrote this out the other day too. I'll just share a little bit with you here in a second, but I think one of the first and most important things with our patients is to actually sit down and create a relationship with them and find some commonalities, find some things that start to at least kind of put them at ease and find out what it is that they are really searching for. And I think in today's day and age, what I see with a lot of docs and sometimes with some of the younger doctors too is just too eager to prescribe a treatment without really getting an opportunity to know the patient or know that client and really know what it is that they really, really, truly want and
Yeah.
being able to get them at a place to where they can be calm. And some of that comes from body language with matching and mirroring, and some of that is tone and being able to look at mirroring the tone that they're showing with you or speaking with you, and then slowly being able to help control that tone and dial them back and get them into a place where they're comfortable to where
Mm.
they also feel at a place or tell them a story that allows them to see themselves in you or whatever it may be, where I want to get them feeling as comfortable as possible before I ever look in there. And then being able to really listen. And I think one of the other things is that somebody asked me the other day, what would you tell, a young dentist who's really just starting out? What is one of the best ways that they can be successful? And I said two things. One, truly become an amazing expert listener. Two, stay naturally curious, curious with people. Like, tell me more. Tell me how you got into doing what you're doing. Ask them about I mean, but when you're naturally and authentically curious and you take the time to really listen, that pays off tremendously. Some docs are like, well, I don't have time to do that. Well, I would tell you the open places in your schedule are a reflection of that. So I will tell you to take the time and do that. Take the time to create the relationships because at the end of the day, I want to be working on people who I know and that they know me.
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge part in it. Anxiety is an interesting piece that you brought up. And let me just share it this way because once I saw this, I never looked at it the same again. I want you guys to think about this. So when you look at the present facts of the reality of your current reality, let's just call it the facts. The way in which you are going to interpret those facts is either positive or negative. So that's going into your mindset as that interpretation of the facts. Well, the output of that, either positive or negative, then becomes a belief. And so a negative fact that's being interpreted that way, the output in that belief of that negative fact is going to manifest in a belief of doubt. The opposite, the positive fact, the output of that is going to manifest in faith. Now, both of those have the opportunity to impact how you feel.
Mm.
Faith is going to create anticipation. You're looking forward to it. With the long-term output of that being power. Now
Mhm.
check this out. Doubt is going to show up and the output of that is going to be anxiety.
Mm.
That's the feeling that's going to manifest. And so get this. Think about this. And then the long-term output of that is powerlessness. And so I want you to think of it this way. Listen, when we look at fear, fear is having caution to a true, ever present, and ready danger that is right there with us. That is true fear. But I want you to think about anxiety for a minute. Anxiety for a minute, some of the symptoms of anxiety are going to be some of the same things as fear. You might get sweaty on your head, your palms may start to sweat, your breath may start to become more shallow and rapid, your heart rate's going to speed up. Well, all of those are also symptoms of fear, but we can see that manifest too in anxiety. And oftentimes, anxiety is going to show up and you're thinking that it's fear. And the reality is that, but there is no ever present and ready danger that's really going to be causing you. So it is an assumed caution of a danger that is possibly existing tomorrow or later or sometime in the future. And so when we think of it that way, you've got to consider how we're speaking to patients or how we're speaking to our clients. Because if we're talking to them and they're perceiving a negative in the facts, then they're going to have doubt, they're going to have anxiety, and all of that's going to come into play big time in how you guys communicate, how they feel in your practice, and their ability to move forward with care. I hope that I described that in a way that made sense.
Oh, absolutely. So what you put out, if you put out faith, you're putting out power, they're going to receive it. And then
Mhm.
when they receive it, it's going to transcend and take them out of that anxiety state, that state of anxiety.
Yes. Well, and check this out. I think like the more that we sit here and we talk about like we take models and we hold up models to the patient, we talk about all the benefits and the bells and whistles. Guess what? We're taking chances with that because those facts could be interpreted either way, positive or negative. But when we take the time to focus on what they want and they can articulate that and they can envision that, that has the greatest chance of them perceiving and understanding things from a positive standpoint of those facts. So when we can start to organize things, and that's why I said become very curious, become an expert listener to really truly find out what it is that they want, and then create a plan that we can sufficiently get them there in a professional way.
Hmm. Hmm. And patience from what I heard, is a very important ingredient as you do walk yourself or walk through
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely. And to be able to, and you can feel that. I mean, it's all energy too. When we're with that patient, they can feel if we're stressed. You can feel if they're stressed. So just taking the time and then acknowledging it, just say, hey, I get that this may not be the easiest place for you to be. But today, I want to make this focus all about you, let you actually have as easy of a time here as possible. I'm going to explain everything to you in a way that maybe has not ever been done before. But let's look at targeting this together and let's co create something together that works for you. And when people know that you're wanting them to win, and that's truly how I look at approaching it, they can feel that. They can feel it.
Wow. I mean, I'm hearing you speak. You're in the profession of dentistry, but it also sounds like you might have a PhD in psychology as well. I don't know. I mean, like,
Well,
there's
I'll
all.
tell you, I think as dentists, we have to have a really great understanding of human behavior. And I think of that as how we can best take care of our clients, our patients. I also think that's important when you consider your marketing and your advertising. All of those things of understanding human behavior are so important because most of marketing, let's say you're marketing to Bob and you're marketing to Bob at point B or C, and Bob's still sitting over here at A, but your message is trying to hit him at C. There's no way that those things connect. But when you can back up and start to understand this psychology, you can meet Bob where he's at with your messaging. And the same thing when they're coming into your practice. So now you can create a better experience for them. That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So then when you're having these conversations, the main thing is that you want to build a relationship and
Yes.
and you want to identify if there are any fears or apprehension that the client may have as you having this conversation. And as you said, meet them where they are.
Meet them where they are. And then, looking at what are the challenges or hurdles that they're facing. And then let's look at tackling those together.
Mhm.
Because when that's all on the table and you guys can have a honest conversation about it, whether it is money or whether that's a fear of maybe pain or discomfort, whatever it is, when you can get all of those hurdles out and those challenges is out, Now you can actually have a great conversation around it. And again, you're coming at it from a perspective of, let me help you. How can I support you in finding our way to get from point A, where we are today, to point B, where you want to be? Let's find our way to do that. And let's find our way to bypass the hurdles as easily as we can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So what are some of the like challenges that you see or you've had in just the business part of dentistry?
Man, that's a great question. Because I've been doing dentistry now 27 years. And people might look at the way that I'm practicing now and think, man, he's just doing great. But it was not always this way at all. Matter of fact, when I was 6 years out, I wanted to quit dentistry. And unless I had met my partner who I practice with, I don't even know that I would still be in dentistry. So that's one component. And then at one point, I owned two offices. So one of the business mistakes that I made, I did the second office completely wrong. I didn't own any of the real estate. I opened it up in a center and I started it from scratch. And then that was 52 miles away from where I lived. And so I was trying to build a culture remotely. It felt like I was playing Dr. Daycare some of the times. And I would go over there on every Friday and work inside of the practice in order to make sure that it was producing, as well as build the practice up to create a strong, successful practice that could actually produce good numbers. And I built it up to over a 7-figure practice. But the cost was tremendous. It cost me a lot of emotional well-being with myself, with my family, and with my health. I didn't have the tools to manage that type of stress, and I felt burnt out. So I would tell you, the one of the biggest mistakes that I made at business, and I think it's the most costly mistake, was guessing. And I think it's the most costly mistake that anybody can make in business, is to guess. And so when we can look at operating much more effectively and efficiently, and we have the opportunity to look at tracking, and we track numbers and we look at things, that allows us to make now real-time decisions that are running off the facts, and we're not making decisions based on fiction. So it's not like going up to your front office and saying, hey, how's the new ad doing? And they're like, oh yeah, great, we've got some calls. You don't know how many calls. You have no clue. You have no concept. You don't know how many patients came in from it. You don't know how many patients or leads were even exposed to it. You don't know how much you actually produced from it, the ROI. And so then you're guessing when it comes time to go back and have new ad spend, you're totally guessing. And that's just one example. So we need to look at being able to track and have great systems and processes that allow you not to have these days that are like really high production and really low production. Really high, we want
Right.
to set it to where, look, and that point in our schedule, we want our schedule to be boring, meaning that it's, hey, we are producing at or above our goal, and it is stable, and it is sustainable, and we have statistics to back it up, as well as the systems and processes to make this work effectively. Does that
Mm.
make sense too?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great, great. So then tell me, what's the connection with that and the idea of limitless? Tell us about limitless.
So, the Limitless Dentist Academy is what I created. And so the connection was this, as you heard me talking about, inside of dentistry, dentistry can be the most rewarding profession. And at the same time, it can feel like a very, very lonely place. And that was part of my experience, is that I kind of felt like this guy, although I was producing well, I felt like this guy who couldn't just quite figure it out. Like, how do I have all of this together? How do I make all of these things work together? Because I always felt like I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, meaning that, man, if I work and just focus on my business inside of my practices, then my relationships at home are sliding, or my relationship with God is sliding, or My business is taking over, and then my body, I'm not taking great care of it. I'm maybe eating fast food or not getting up well, or in my case, to manage the stress, I was drinking every day. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I decided that there had to be a change when my wife and I had a confrontational argument where she said, Jeff, I didn't sign up for this shit. Listen, the kids and I walk around here every day on eggshells. And I realized, man, I do not want to be in this space of going down this road towards another divorce. And I'd already had one. I don't want to be racking them up for number two. So I had to make some shifts and some dramatic changes. I hired coaches and mentors, and I went to work on me significantly. See, in dentistry, we put a lot of credence into continuing education, which we should. We absolutely need to. But a lot of that continuing education is focused on skill sets, which we also need. I believe that you need to be able to deliver high level, excellent, or elite care. I totally believe that. And that's what my focus is. When I have the opportunities to do these great transformative cases, I get to do a lot of all on X procedures and restore them. I do the surgery and I love it and I'm passionate about it. But at the same time, that's half of the equation. The other half of the equation is mindset. And so the reason that Limitless came about was the fact that, listen, there's a lot of men outside there in dentistry that really don't understand how to put all of those things together. So how do I get it to where my business is continuing to grow, my production's going up, my profitability is growing up, and I'm doing it in a way that's not burning down my marriage and it's not destroying my health. So my fitness, my health, my body is being weaponized along the way. My connection spiritually with whatever it is that you believe in, for me, that's God, also rises. My connection with my kids rise, and my practice is working. And so when we can actually get all of those things to rise harmoniously and synergistically and have it to where now this is a sustainable scenario, as well as like almost working like compound interest year after year, it just gets better and better and better. That's the reason that I created this. It's really truly looking at how do I have it all and setting yourself up to be free.
Wow. Limitless. And it is, I can see where, I mean, when you're working with all of those different areas and you want them all to move in the same direction and kind of keep a balance with all of them, man, I mean, that is empowering. That is
It's yeah. And listen, we're never taught as dentists how to look at managing all that. I didn't get any business courses. I didn't get any management courses. I didn't get any leadership courses. None of that. So you just learn under fire. And a lot of times, listen, we screw stuff up when we do that. And that's that's just part of the nature of the game. But when you can actually have people who've been there that can shortcut your experience. I always say, listen, I like to pay for speed and efficiency. That's the reason that I'll take the tollway on the highway and pay for it. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I want to get to my destination.
Yes.
I'll pay for that. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in life. I want to find people who are to my right, who are accomplishing the things that I desire or choose to accomplish or put into play in my life and pay them for it so I can get there faster. Because we're always going to have people to our left who are also behind us that we can share our experiences with to support them. So there's always going to be people to our right and to our left. And that's the beautiful part of this game that we get to play. And then, when I look back at it, at that time, when my wife and I had that one pivotal conversation, I was working 5 days a week, stretched between two practices, just killing myself. And like I said, no relationship with God. I had very disconnected with my kids, every day drinking, fighting with my wife. My body was deteriorating. I was just not in a good place. I was in the pit really of my life and didn't know how to manage any of it. And then you fast forward to today, like a year and a half ago, my wife and I moved into our dream home. We were so connected emotionally, physically, spiritually, and connected with my kids, present with them. My body at 53 is more energetic than it ever has been. And my practice now, I sold the other one. I work 3 days a week doing the type of dentistry that I love doing, producing more than I've ever produced in my life on 3 days a week, seeing the type of patients that I love to see.
That's awesome, man. That's a wonderful story.
And getting to coach men inside of dentistry, doing what I love
Yes,
there. And it's
yes,
so much fun. And
yes.
that to me is when you can wake up to a life that you love, that is success. It doesn't, there's
Congratulations.
not a monetary amount with it. It's waking up to a
Yes,
life that you love to wake up to.
absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. And that's the thing about, I mean, like if you're gonna have fun, man, you might as well have fun in the way you want to have fun. And I can
Absolutely.
hear it through your core.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
man.
that's
It's
great. That's
true.
great, man. I'm glad to hear that. So, when you're I guess when you're not in at work, when you're not at work, what's your day like before you come to work? What I mean, and after you leave work, what is your day like?
Man, I live as fully as I can. And so I'm generally up by 3:50, a little bit before 4 a.m. because my morning time is my time.
Mm,
And as you heard me kind of talking about, like I keep 8 simple promises to myself every single day.
mm,
So across 4 main areas in my life, across my body, so my health, my fitness, my being, my spirituality, my purpose, and my balance, so my relationships, and then my business. I'm doing something inside of those 4 domains. So 8 simple promises in those 4 domains that allows me to put myself in a great place of power every day. So by the time I'm showing up in my practice, I'm already lit on fire. I'm not relying on Starbucks to fire me up. I'm not relying on my lucky underwear to sell cases or my new tennis shoes. All of these factors, I'm lit on fire. And guess what? When the chaos comes my way, I have the capacity to deal with it. I can show up and lead effectively. Why? Because I've already led myself that morning and I've already started leading my family that morning. So now I can go in and produce and enrich the lives of the people that I have the opportunity to work with. And so that's before I go into work. Then I hit work. I love it. I love to have the opportunity to transform some lives with surgery and just enjoying dentistry. Like I said, I've been doing dentistry for 27 years. I still look at it like I get to. I think a big part of that is because I have really figured out the lane that I love and it's authentically the way that I want to practice. And so when you can do that, it's very rewarding. And I realize that part of my soul's purpose on this planet is to look at upgrading and transforming people's lives, whether that be inside of dentistry or whether that be inside of coaching or relationships. That is part of my simple purpose is to be an
mm,
amplifier of abundance. How can I do that? How do I operate that way in anything that I'm choosing to do? And
mm,
so that way, if I'm having a conversation, I want to have a conversation that's meaningful, not just to tickle somebody's ears. So we might get into a deeper conversation and like I said earlier, being a great listener. So during the morning, that's there. Afternoon, that's there. And then also then too, having the ability, might be able to go pick up our youngest who's 14. Well, he'll be 14 here this January from school. Spending time with kids and family at night. And then also too, enjoying time then to also run mastermind group, virtual mastermind group, where we meet with men and we talk about things that need to be addressed or allow them to start to learn like what I've created inside of the limitless so that they can see how they can progressively move through life a little bit easier. I'm usually in bed by say 9:30 at the latest. I'm asleep for sure by then because I'm up early. But my
mhm,
morning time is my sacred time. At night, I like to get in bed and just relax and connect with my wife and have good conversation and just spend time there.
mm,
Sure that, at night too, our youngest, he's pretty brilliant, man, but he plays chess at a level that I taught him when he was 5, and I can rarely ever beat him anymore. He's a rated player. He gets on chess.com. He plays people all over the world, and it's fun. So I play him like every night we try to have a chess game unless he's got major studies that he's got to. And I just see how long I can hang in there now. It's fun, and that's what's part of it that makes it unique and fun. And it's fun when I can't win anymore, and I'm trying as hard as I can, to win. And it's fun watching him teach me. He's like, "Are you sure you want to do that move, Dad?" And I'm like, evidently no. So what am I missing? What am I missing seeing on the table here? And have him explain it. And I'm like, man, I can think like 3 or 4 moves ahead, but you're like 10 moves ahead. And I can't do that, but it's great because it teaches, he's teaching me strategy, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. From the miles of babes, we can actually,
Yes.
man, I hear so much humility throughout your conversation. It's just bursting all over the seams, so to speak. So, you know, you get an opportunity to spend time with your family, mentor other men, uh, have in-depth conversations with your clients, yeah, and
Yeah.
enjoying it. So, what is there that we haven't talked about? I know that
Man,
I know there's one thing that comes to mind, and I was
go
wondering,
ahead. Go ahead.
so tell me more about this. I know you got this limitless piece, and it's like, all over the place. I mean, like it is just a wonderful piece to have as a part of your business. I'm just wondering, uh, how, how did you know to seek the people
Mm,
that help put you in the place that you're in now? I mean, you
mm.
obviously got a group of different people
Yes.
that hit
Yes.
certain type of pain points so that you
Yes.
can clear that up. I mean, how did you go about doing the research and picking those people, picking their brain?
Man, I think sometimes it's a God thing, really. Because I think sometimes if you're open to it, it will come to you, and the right people will show up in your world. And that's truly, I believe that 100%. Like, I didn't, I've never necessarily gone to research somebody like, oh, I got to find this
Wow.
person. It's very much so always been very organic, believe it or not.
Awesome.
And where I might hear something like on this, like on a podcast, and that guest may resonate with me, and I'm like, oh, I need to reach out to talk with them, or I need to create a connection with them because, man, I'd like to learn something from them,
Mhm.
and then have the willingness and the humility to ask, hey, can I learn this from you, or can I pay you for your time and your effort, or whatever it may be? And so I always look at it from the perspective of, okay, where am I going? And once I'm really clear on where it is that I'm going, and I know right where I'm at, there's always a gap. And there's always that gap that exists. So then I start to look at, okay, who is operating over here with where I desire to be in the future or with my future self? And that's where I start to plug in. And then that's where I believe that there's no accidents where people come into your world. It just naturally starts to happen, I think. And where I think a lot of times we're so busy in life that we miss it.
Mhm.
And when you slow down and you can take the time to slow down, you can actually start to see, wow, there is a lot to be had there. Even in just regular conversation with friends, you can get so much support with just getting in the right circles
Mhm.
and being in the right around the right people for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
And when you start to choose to live in a way that is authentic, first of all, that's you, and you start to then shape your world around the identity that you look at creating, that's a big part of it. Listen, the words I am, I think, are two of the most powerful words in the English language because the word that follows I am, you will absolutely live into. So when people say, oh, I'm a smoker, well, congratulations. You'll always continue to be a smoker until that shifts or changes. I tell people that all the time in my practice. But if you say, up until now, I have been a smoker, but going forward, I am willing to change, or I am willing to look at whatever it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of that is just having the ability for ourselves to look in the mirror and acknowledge wherever we're at. Doesn't matter if it's good, bad, you're happy about it, you're not happy about it. Even if you're not happy about it, just the ability to truthfully acknowledge where you're at, that is one of the best things that we can do, because there's no other better person on the planet to look at changing that than you. Because listen, either through your actions or your inactions, you've created the reality that exists for you right now, which means that you have the absolute power to create any type of reality that you want to for yourself. And there's no better person to do that. Now, you can either figure out and DIY it along the way and take maybe 10 years to do that and get there, or you can look for and search out individuals that are where you are wanting to be or desiring to be, and seek them out and get conference from them
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
seek their counsel. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, it does. So if we were to take a pivot and look at maybe your specialty, what got you to say, okay, all right, I want to specialize now because I'm motivated to do this particular work. And what motivated you to start that part of the business?
Man, that's an awesome question too. When I sit here and look back at it, I've had an opportunity. I would be what you would really originally call a super GP, meaning that man, I poured in so much time into continuing education. Like I went all through Dawson for occlusion. I went through all of LSU continuum for cosmetics. I spent a whole preceptorship for 10 months down in San Antonio for implants. Then I did a bunch of stuff with phase one orthodontics with the AAGO, American Academy of Athletic Orthopedics. And so I felt very comfortable and confident in being able to handle a lot that came in. And as I did more and more complex cases like full mouth rehabilitations and got great results and had happy patients and continue to refine my skill set and refine my ability to be able to verbalize it and communicate well with patients, it just started to get to be really more and more exciting. And as the time continued over the years, then I could start to see, man, I'm really enjoying this. I really am loving surgery. I'm really loving this route here with dental implantology. And now, I mean, I still do some general dentistry, but by the end of 2025, actually by the middle of I won't be doing any more general dentistry. There'll be other doctors in our office that will be picking that up. And then I'll be just focused on all implantology. I love that. And I also feel like I know that I've earned that right to be able to do that inside of our practice after this many years.
Mhm.
And so part of that is being confident, knowing that, yeah, am I going to have some pushback from patients like, oh, I only want to see you, or I want to see this? That's okay. I get it. And I get the fact that some of them may leave. And I'm okay with that. I have to be okay with that, because if I'm going to be true to myself and really continue to foster what I want to do, then I've got to be true to myself and not bend to the reality of what anybody else wants for me. I've got to look at, what do I desire for me? And what do I choose for myself? And when you can do that and stand in a powerful place, then it works out. I will always be willing to bet on myself. And that's the mindset that I've had. If I can have that ability to know that no matter what happens, that horse is going to come through, then I'm off to the races.
Awesome. Yes,
And
sir.
then I'm off to the races and we're going.
Indeed.
Now, is there going to be some mistakes along the way? Absolutely. It's kind of like a plane that takes off going from New York to LAX. That plane is going to get off course all the time, but it's going to self correct. So you've got that autopilot just continue to self correct all along the way. It might be a couple degrees off here, gets back on. A couple degrees off here, gets back on. So the ability to be able to course correct and pivot and learn and understand the lessons that you're getting along the way, that's the pivotal part. It's not always necessarily about that destination, but it's understanding the growth along the way. And when you can start to see that, You start to see things differently, as opposed to, like I said, man, there's times where there is no perfect team. So we will have what I call training opportunities. Something happened that wasn't the greatest in our office or our practice. That's a training opportunity. Celebrate those things. It may not feel like celebrating at the time, but you actually have the opportunity to say, great, we have the ability now to make our practice even better. We have the ability to make our service better. Did we mishandle something? Absolutely. How do we grow from that? Or how do we not repeat that? And that's part of life. So when we can operate with that type of integrity and we can look at things from that mindset, it allows for a growth mindset and it allows for us to create a culture that people want to be a part of.
Yes, you have a pretty nice size office staff. Can you talk about your team?
Sure, man. It's fun. I'll put my team up against any team on the planet. I love it. And like at the same time, in the same sentence, I said, we're not perfect. We never will be. And I know that. I know there's always room for improvement. And a big part of it is being able to have, listen, we've got, when you add up, we got 3 doctors, we got 23 team members. That's a lot of people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's also a lot of different personalities to look at managing. That's a lot of different individuals who might have different opinions. And so coming back to that, I think it's very important for us to have a vision that's bigger than myself or bigger than the practice. It's a vision that allows everybody to be pulled into. And so when you can have a team that's enrolled in a vision that's bigger than you or bigger than the practice, now it becomes exciting. Now those are the things that start to pull the team ahead. And you hire with people that are also like-minded, meaning that they have some of the same core values that you have. Have you ever met somebody and like within 2 minutes, you're like, man, this is my brother from another mother. I could talk to this guy all day. Or my sister, same thing. Or you meet somebody and it's like immediately we're butting heads,
Yeah.
right? And why is that? Well, it becomes from the way in which our worldview is expressed, meaning the way in which we see the world and the way in which we see ourselves to our self view. So all of those things come about from the way we grew up with our parents, how we operated maybe in our church, how we operated with our teachers, and all of these people or extended family members or older brothers or sisters, all of these people had an input that affect the way in which you see the rules, how the world operates, the laws in which by this world operates, and your stories and your beliefs.
Mm.
And so when we look at that, now when we start to get that, we look for hiring people that are on that same type of pattern or path.
Mm.
Because I would much rather teach a skill set than to look at teaching from that perspective on where are they at mentally and emotionally in those beliefs. Okay. So we look for core values that align. And now we can use core values to operate and to manage people. Like if we operate by these core values, and then it becomes easy. Like if everybody's in agreement that this is how we operate, then it's easy for the office manager to say, okay, where are we off target here? Which core value are we mishandling here? Oh, integrity. How does that show up? Oh, it showed up like this. Okay, how can we course correct this? How can you course correct this? Boom, it gives a whole different way to operate in that. So when we can create that, now I believe you start to create a solid culture.
So when you,
Now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, now you have a team that becomes more unified. I think that it can be very challenging, especially in a multi-doctor office. And I've been guilty of this where you get just kind of so focused, right, on what it is that you're doing. Sometimes it can be easier to forget about kind of everybody. And so that ability to come together, have monthly meetings, have morning huddles at work, have the ability to actually get together even outside of work to be real human beings together
Mm.
is important.
Mm.
It's very important, I
Mm.
think.
Mm. So when you I was going to just say that, so when you shut down your second office, did you bring most of those people over, or how
I
did that?
s- the good thing, I sold my second office, which was great. So that was awesome, and it allowed the doctor that took it over was great. And I had built it up to a point of being able to do some pretty complex dentistry. And so, there was a great prosthodontist who was working in there, and he was doing amazing things, which let me feel really good that know that these patients will be well taken care of. And so selling that allowed those team members to also stay there and transition over with the new doctor. And that actually worked really, really well and was pretty seamless.
Oh, okay.
And some turnover did happen, but it was also the right thing for that individual because they were choosing to have a different season in their life then.
Hmm.
Seasons change for people too. We've got to be able to understand that. And I think too, realizing that as an employer, sometimes we might hold somebody back from what they truly need to be doing.
Mm,
Sometimes it is the appropriate thing to do to free somebody up so they can go find their happy place.
mm, yes.
It's important. It's so important.
So you managed to work that out, and in the process of doing so, well, actually, before you even made the decision um, to actually bring someone in to take over the second practice or sell the second practice, that you and that prosthodontist had to meet at the same place some kind of way. And for some reason, you all connected.
Yes.
What was that, I mean, how did you wind up knowing outside of his skill sets that this was the person that was going to take over, or you were going to sell this practice to?
So that doctor was working inside of the practice. The individual who bought it was not that prosthodontist,
Oh,
but it was an individual then that was very interested in the practice because it was operating in a way that had, great patients coming in, doing some amazing implant care, doing some full comprehensive dentistry. So that aligned with the individual who was also doing that in their other practices. And so that wound up being a unifying scenario of saying, okay, this fits. So it fit his bill with what he was looking for, and it fit my bill for knowing that the practices that he had already had and was running was of that type of caliber.
that's awesome. That was
So it
awesome.
created that
Yeah.
created that in a very simplified manner. It was efficient because of, again, those same things that were looking at. The practice that I built was not just your churn and burn type practice. You're not just rolling patients over. It's sitting down, having the time to connect, making those relationships, having solid relationships that people are coming back. They're not choosing you just because you're on a list. They're choosing you because of the care that you provide.
Wow. So you guys, I mean, like, did he find you or you found him? How did that manifest?
He found me, and I remember I can't remember how we got in touch with each other. And then we just sat down, and I invited him into the practice, and we sat there just one afternoon, literally for about 3 hours, just talking and just, tell me more about you. Tell me more about your practices. Tell me about what it is that you're looking for, and making sure that it was a good fit for both,
Yeah.
really. Like, just same thing that we should be looking at doing with our patients. Like, what is it that you're looking for? And then, and then I can authentically see, am I the right individual for that person?
Mm,
Same thing in our coaching. When I'm looking at men that I'm interviewing for our coaching for our mastermind, I keep my groups small for a reason. Like, each group is 10 people or under. The
mm,
reason is that creates a cohesive unit, and it allows those individuals that are in that group to know each other, not to feel like they're, just spectating a fly on the wall, And then we go hard, like go hard in the paint. Boom, I'm after this. I'm going to go hard. And it also allows me then to make sure that I can, when I'm interviewing them, then we can make sure that everything that I'm doing is going to be a fit for what it is that they're looking for. Because if it's not, then I want to share with them, okay, here's a better resource for what it is that you need.
I get the impression that this is not only just for dentists, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you can do this for anybody that fits your, I don't know, your idea of the correct person coming into your system.
Right now, it is for male dentists. I'm also playing around with. I've had a couple of individuals, more than a couple, about four handful of guys that are outside, meaning that they're vendors or they're people that I've worked with, and they're like, "Man, I'm real interested in doing some coaching with you. Would you consider that?" So I'm considering another group there. Um, and you're right. Eventually, what I've created is something I've also bought, what's called the Limitless Revolution. And part of what my big vision is to look at supporting men in other areas of professions, meaning that, listen, you might be in dermatology, you might be a chiropractic, you might be a lawyer, you different professional men, because most men in that type of scenario have a lot of the same issues that we deal with. So you're 100% right in that. And what's really pretty cool is that I like to, like I said, I like to stay in my lane, but I realize that it can effectively support a lot of people. But currently at this time, I focus on men in dentistry.
Awesome.
And, people have asked, well, why not women? And I love women. I love women. I love my wife. I love my daughter. And I love women, but coaching women is different. And the other thing that I have found, because I've coached both men and women, and when you put them into a unified system, it becomes really difficult, I think, sometimes to manage, meaning that, let's face it, my experience has been women are so amazing at being able to be very vulnerable, and they will just say whatever they need to say in order to look at saying they're going to be willing to gut themselves because they want to get to the result, and they will go through the pain and be able to be vulnerable. Whereas guys, we're not necessarily like that. We want to protect how we look a lot. And so if there's women involved, I see, and what my experience has been, is guys tend to shut down a lot more readily. It has
Mm,
to be a very special environment for that to not be the case. So it doesn't mean that I don't want to coach women. It just means that the fact is that it needs to be completely separated. And I also have to set boundaries. And at this point in time, my time, I have to respect it enough so that I can have time for my family, so that I can have time for the things that I want to do. So currently, I'm not coaching women inside of this, although a lot of the principles would apply to them,
mhm,
just being delivered in a different matter of how we're communicating.
mm. So what do you,
And I want to add one last thing.
sure.
I can't necessarily authentically coach them 100% up either, because I'm not a woman. And the fact is that I can't authentically put myself in a place to understand some of the things that they have to deal with inside of dentistry. Like, I will never understand mommy guilt. I will never understand or never have the feeling like when somebody says, "Oh, are you the hygienist?" and they're the female dentist, and it just is infuriating, or having patients that are hitting on you and those types of things. You know, I can't put myself authentically in that position to truly coach them up. So, can I give them advice on how to handle it? Sure, I can do that. But just from an authentic and integrity standpoint, I can't do that.
I can understand. I can see that. And then I don't know. I mean, maybe you might just find some woman that can identify with what you're talking about and have the bandwidth to take it in and put it
That
into
is that
act.
is the idea because
Yeah.
these things I think are very pertinent for women. And I would
Yes.
love to have a woman coach or mentor who'd be willing to step into the game, who
Mhm.
also would have a passion to be able to do this and facilitate this for the wonderful women inside of dentistry as well.
Yeah, because that number is growing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they need support as well.
Yes, it.
And because they're managing, a lot of the same stresses and additional stresses on top of it.
Mhm.
So there's factors that are involved there that they really need to have somebody to be able to hear them and to get them and for them to feel seen and heard and to be understood from a way that I don't know that I can authentically do that.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't want to shortchange somebody and be out of integrity.
Yes, understood. So what are your thoughts about any new technology, and what do you see that going in the next 5, 10 years, or and your business
Yeah.
behind
Man,
that?
the things that are happening, right now with AI is incredible. I think things can be very, very beneficial. Like, you just look at some of the things that are happening inside the space with looking at utilizing AI to help support looking at radiographs and x-rays and things of that nature. It's incredible. You start to look at things, man. I got to speak at Productive Dentist Academy about, it was 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago. And they had some of the different technology there. And I demoed the Yomi robotic arm and for placing dental implants. It was amazing. And I was like, this is incredible technology. I've been placing implants for 24 years. I was pushing on it to see if I could push it off course. If I was pushing it on as hard as I could to see if I could make it go deeper. It was amazing to me. And so I think what's coming is going to be nothing but more and more and better because the more we can utilize technology to create better services and to be more efficient, as well as sometimes less invasive, man, that's just a win for everybody. I've always
Mm.
been a big believer in technology. 2004, I think we had one of the first ICAT CT scans in our North Texas area. We've always had some rendition of CERAC since that time as well, or before that time. And, just staying on top of things technology wise, I think one of our ways that we like to look at our practices is that we're high tech, but also high touch. And as long as you maintain that high touch with the high tech, now you can create the relationships that can go hand in hand. So technology is stuff that we've got to stay up with. We've got complete digital workflow for all of our full arch stuff. One of our other doctors, Dr. Okada, he's doing a bunch of digital stuff right now for even provisionals for veneers and also for other cosmetic work as well as for full mouth rehabs. So it's really a pretty cool time to be in dentistry. I look at it as like a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and when you can look at it that way and enjoy it, it continues to make it rewarding. And staying on the leading edge also is something that continues to set yourself apart from other practitioners as well.
This has been great. I'm sure people are going to enjoy this. Like I probably is, I don't know if they can enjoy it better than me. I just love every piece of what you had to say today.
Ward,
Uh,
I appreciate it.
yeah. If someone wanted to contact you, just to pick your brain for a few minutes, how would they do that?
And best thing is just hit me up in a message in Instagram is Dr. Jeff, JEFF BUSKE, Dr. Jeff Buske. Just find me there and send me a message. You can also find me on same thing on LinkedIn. Just hit me in Messenger there or send me a DM. And the great thing is I will respond to you. I will definitely respond to you. Like I said, I'm committed to looking at making tremendous change and transformation inside of our profession. Look, our profession, here's my big stand that I'm going to just share this with, and I'll end on this,
Sure.
is that I am committed to reducing the amount of divorce, depression, sedation, and suicide inside of our profession.
Mm.
Every one of those is a huge problem, and those statistics continue to rise. If I can have any part in reducing that, then I feel like, man, I have really done something to support our profession. By the time that I leave this planet, that is one of my big, hairy, audacious goals.
Wow. And so, I don't know any. I would think you're not going to retire anytime soon.
No,
Okay,
no,
cool,
no. I'm 50. I'm 53. Like I said, my body is doing great.
good.
I'm enjoying life. I'm energized, and as long as I continue to look at dentistry like I still get to, then I'll be there. It may go down to 2 days a week sometime, but right now I love what I'm doing. I love my schedule,
Mhm.
and I love the time that I get to spend in the practice with the patients, with my team. I love building that. And at the same time, then I love building the men that I get to coach. All of that is just so much fun. And it allows me to still have a life that I love to live. And like I said, that I love to wake up to.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and on that note, Dr. Buske, thank you so much for joining us here at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. We just enjoyed loving having you here, and would like to see you here again because I know that we didn't even
We're just scratching the
surface.
surface.
Scratch the surface, man. So
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I'd be happy to come back. And Ward, I appreciate you having me. And yeah, and I hope that you guys found today something to be useful for yourself. And like I said, if I can help anything in any way, facilitate that for you, please reach out to me. Be more than
will
happy to
do.
connect.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. I appreciate it, bud.